Skeleton Crew Episode 6. 30-ish minutes of padding for the series. Jod's appeal to a kangaroo court and the Cinder's escape from a mobile incinerator. Did I miss anything? Oh, for the second time with no substantiation, Wim told Fern,
"You were amazing!"
Amazing!
Grand Admiral Sean and I discussed Skeleton Crew. His perspectives might surprise you. Stick around. Welcome to Galactic Initiative. I'm your host, Jeff. Joining me after a long campaign in the Outer Rim is Grand Admiral Sean. Welcome, Sean.
Hello, my friend.
6 of Skeleton Crew's 8 episodes have come and gone. What are your thoughts about the series?
Based on some of your commentary in your previous video reviews of the series, I will give a sort of a Cliff Notes version of basically the same stuff. I am in alignment with a lot of your opinions on the show. I'm caught up in that group of people that were anticipating the worst, but didn't get it, but also didn't get the best. So I've caught myself saying, well, it wasn't that bad. And then, of course, then we fall into the conversation about, well, what does that say about expectations, and what does that say about the quality and ourselves as fans and all that kind of stuff. I was fully anticipating another iteration of something Acolyte-esque, but we didn't get that, which is good. And so I have been mildly surprised by the show. I don't know if I'm saying I'm enjoying it as much as I enjoyed something like Andor. It's not necessarily a thrill ride or a deep drama or a particularly good comedy, but it's inoffensive Star Wars, and for once I'm happy that we're getting that. The performances by the people in the show, great. The kids are great. The production values, I think, are fine. I know there's been some conversation about the volume being used and things like that, and some of the appearances of some of the places, but it doesn't feel as cheap as some of the shows that have come out, like Book of Boba Fett. The story is okay so far. I feel like there's been some filler episodes, like episode 4 felt like a Star Trek episode to me, where you land on the planet and you encounter some weird culture and you try and solve a problem, and then you get back on the ship and leave. It felt out of place, and it felt like it wasted some time in progressing the story about Ad-Atten and the quest for treasure and pirates and whatnot. But all in all, it's been again, here I am with all these like subpar expectations and not having high expectations for Star Wars, which I feel bad about because I should. But it hasn't offended me. It hasn't. I haven't like turned it off in the middle of an episode. I haven't flipped the table over and been like, oh, come on, when something happens in the show, like I've done with previous Disney Star Wars streaming shows. But all in all, it's been decent. I'm looking forward to seeing how this one ends. Unlike the Acolyte, when we were kind of about halfway through it, I was like, I'm going to experience this. I'm going to finish it because that's what we do for our fans, right? We watch it so you don't have to. But I was not looking forward to episodes during the Acolyte as this series went on. In this show, I'm actually mildly intrigued, and I'm wanting to see where it goes. So good for them. They've created a story that's kept my interest. It doesn't appear to be, so far, I have to keep saying that, I have to keep using qualifiers, but it doesn't appear to be breaking any lore. It doesn't appear to be destroying any established characters or subverting institutions that we've come to know and love in Star Wars. So because it showed up and wasn't rude and didn't trash the place, I guess it's succeeding as a Star Wars show.
I didn't hate it feels like high praise nowadays. A broader conceptual question, is Skeleton Crew a Star Wars series?
Not yet. I'm going to say not yet. It has Star Wars elements in it. It takes place kind of in the Star Wars universe, I guess. It doesn't feel Star Wars-y to me, but that I also, again, I use qualifiers. I don't know how this is going to end. By the time we hit the last episode and we unravel the mystery of the Republic or whatever, and what's going on in this current Mandoverse kind of space on the timeline, who knows? But other than 33 and some of the background aliens and other stuff, it doesn't necessarily feel like Star Wars. Now, there's a lot of stuff going on in the social media spaces that discuss Star Wars, and there's this big fight about, what is Star Wars and what isn't Star Wars and all that stuff. And I am not of the opinion that it must have Jedi and lightsabers in order to be Star Wars. I think Andor is one of the finest pieces of Star Wars entertainment to come out since, Empire Strikes Back. And it has none of that in it. But it's very much a Star Wars story because it's firmly rooted in that space. Skeleton Crew doesn't really do that. I mean, it is technically taking place in the Star Wars universe at a time post the Old Republic. And other than a couple of X-Wing fighters that showed up, it didn't really feel like it's situated in a narrative inside of the Star Wars universe that reminds us that it's Star Wars. It's an adventure. It's a child oriented or child centric adventure. It's not necessarily a children's show, and I get tired of people saying that it is because it has child actors in it. It is not necessarily a children's show. It might be a younger fan show, but it's not like a cartoon or something that's for children. It's a science fiction show for sure. It's a space drama comedy for sure. But it's not screaming Star Wars, right? There are Star Wars elements to it. I'm always a big fan of the droids. And then, of course, you see some of these familiar alien races floating around. But there's no signposting or there's no markers that would show you that you're in the Star Wars universe. Other than the conversations about the Old Republic, or the Republic or whatever, and those are kind of passing, and those really only sort of orient around the parents. And then, there's nothing really. The couple of X-Wing fighters, that's about it. And so I'm waiting for it. Like, I'm waiting for the big Star Wars payoff. And again, I don't know exactly how to articulate that, but maybe it is bringing in a character that we've known, a peripheral character. It's not like Luke Skywalker doesn't show up at the end of this or whatever, but there's got to be something there that sort of ties it into the larger lore. And I'm hoping that this solving of this mystery, air quotes, of the Jewels of the Republic thing will give us the Star Wars sort of element that we need in order to call it a true Star Wars show. But really right now I feel like it's a solid sci-fi comedy drama space show. And I think the big plot twist at the end is you're going to get Star Wars in like the last episode. But the Amblin Entertainment stuff, I kind of wish that a lot of people are mad about, Goonies in space, whatever. I'm not, whatever. But what kind of makes me mad or surprises me, I think is probably a better word. What surprises me about some of the marketing and some of the pre-release interviews with directors and producers and actors and whatever is when somebody says to me, hey, I made a movie and it's like Goonies in space. Well, so now I have something in my mind, right? I have an expectation of a certain type of movie with a certain type of plot, with a certain group of characters performing a certain type of way, achieving a certain type of goal. And so now you've prejudiced my creative mind, my mind's eye, when I go and sit down to watch this show or this movie or read this book or whatever. Because now I'm comparing it to that. And one of two things happens. Well, potentially three. I'll be generous. One of three things happens. Either I compare your product to the old product and I see how terribly you didn't copy the original product, right? And how you're not living up to the expectation of Goonies in space. Or second thing is I see how terribly you ripped off the original product, right? And you showed no original creativity whatsoever. You're just really wrapping it in a different skin possibly and not doing anything new or different, right? Which shows, creative laziness. Or three, maybe you do actually find a bridge between this is the feel I was going for, Goonies in space, and this is the thing I created, which is something different but also incredibly enjoyable. But then the fans can see how this has a Goonie vibe to it. Now, I know that's the goal, right? That was the goal of this show. But I think depending on who you talk to, it falls into one of the other two. Either it doesn't live up to your expectation of Goonies if you're a super nostalgic Goonies fan, or if you're someone who is familiar with it and it knows what's going on in that other movie, and they see what you're doing and they see that you're completely ripping it off and not doing anything new, you're going to get criticism from both of those groups. One, you didn't do my childhood correct, you didn't do it right, you didn't give it the appropriate respect. Or two, you're just a hack and you didn't do anything new or different with this thing, and you're just you're putting new shirts on the same characters, and that's it. I give these people the benefit of the doubt that created this show. They were shooting for the third option, which is something that channels that, but is also new and different. And I think that we do a disservice to the audience, because if you start prepping them with comparisons or analogies, then they start building a headcanon of their own. That then they go into the show and they do so. It was like when Leslie Headland talked about Acolyte being frozen in space, and among other things. So I kind of wish these people would just shut up about it and be like, hey, we're making this really exciting show. It's about kids. They go on an adventure. It's Star Wars. There's robots. There's aliens. It's like fantastic. You should have just said that. If you set up the pre-expectation that you are going to be referencing other things, then everybody's like, ooh, it's an Easter egg. And if you don't say anything, they say, oh, they're ripoffs, they're hacks, they're, whatever. Right. So it's a tough place to be. But at the same time, if you want to avoid that, you create something new, right? You create something unique and different. But if you're going to start piecing things together and make a Frankenstein of nostalgia, then yes, you absolutely have to get out there in front of it, because otherwise everybody will just call you a hack.
As always, thank you, Sean.
Can't say I remember no Atten.
Dear viewers, please like and subscribe. Thank you for your support. Check out Galactic Initiative for all things Star Wars.
Galactic Initiative is not authorized or endorsed by Lucasfilm Limited. The name Star Wars and all related materials are registered trademarks of Lucasfilm Limited, a subsidiary of the Walt Disney Company, all rights reserved. Galactic Initiative is a registered trademark, and other product and company names are trademarks of their respective holders. Use does not imply affiliation or endorsement.